Hey, Tommy from the Run Testers. In this video, we are going to be reviewing the Saucony Endorphin Trainer. Let's have a look and see what we all thought of this shoe. The Saucony Endorphin Trainer costs $180 in the US. We don't have a confirmed UK price yet, but some stockists are stating it's £200. It weighs 289 grams, which is 10.2 ounces for men in a size 8, and the drop is 8mm. The Saucony Endorphin Trainer is a shoe designed to balance performance with comfort. It does that by combining a soft layer of the brand's IncrediRun foam for comfort with an outer layer of firmer PWRRRUN foam. That mix of midsoles aims to deliver a high level of cushioning with a good amount of energy return. The upper is made from a breathable mesh, built for comfort and breathability, and the outsole features 2 minimal areas of rubber coverage for a sprinkling of grip on varied surfaces, as well as some additional durability.
So when it comes to the fit of the Saucony Endorphin Trainer, I've actually got a UK 8.5 here, which is half a size down on my normal size in general. It's a US 9.5 though, which is a size I often use. And I find with Saucony's training shoes, I can actually generally go for an 8.5 over a 9. And this fits me really well. I've got enough room in the toe box, good hold around the heel and midfoot. It's a similar fit all round to what I have with the Endorphin Speed 4 in the same size. So I kind of could go for a UK 8.5 or a 9. Whereas with some of their racing shoes, like the Endorphin Elite 2, that is too small if I go half a size down. So generally I'd stick to your normal size, but if like me, you're in between two sizes, you might be okay going with the smaller one with the Endorphin Trainer. No concerns at all about the fit otherwise.
Quick word on fit then in the Saucony Endorphin Trainer. I ran in a UK 8.5, which is my regular running shoe size in Saucony. These I love the fit of. Saucony shoes fit me so well. They feel instantly comfortable on the foot. The great things about this, loads of length in the toe box. There's really good clearance, wiggle room for the toes all the way across, so I can spread all of my toes here. Loads of room. It's good for a sort of cruising shoe, this kind of airiness and light feel up front. Nice and spacious, nice and roomy. And then I always get really good midfoot lockdown from Saucony shoes. They hold really well. They're sort of snug but not restrictive. It just sort of comfortably gives my kind of midfoot here or by the toe knuckles a nice secure feel. Across the midfoot there's no movement. Tongues do a good job. And then back to the heels, I just think you've got really nice balanced heel collars here that hold the heels really well. I had no slipping, easy to lace down, and I would recommend going true to size in these shoes. A good fit for long hauling.
The fit for me in the Endorphin Trainer, I'm a size 8 in the UK, this is a size 8. It's quite a roomy shoe. There's plenty of space around the forefoot, plenty of space around the midfoot. It's not, if you've got average size feet, you should be absolutely fine with this. There's also plenty of space before the big toe as well, probably about the amount that most people want. I normally have a little bit less than most people, but I think this is absolutely fine. I definitely say to my size in this shoe, very, very comfortable. And even though it's quite a spacious shoe, it's quite easy to get a nice lockdown fit in. So, and there's lots of nice padding around it as well. It's a very comfortable shoe all round. It sort of fits like a cushion daily shoe. So designed more for comfort than that sort of performance level fit that you might get from a leaner upper and design.
So in testing, I've done north of 25 miles in the Saucony Endorphin Trainer. A big chunk of that mileage has been easy, but I've added in some faster segments to test the versatility in those upper paces. After all, Saucony pitches this shoe for effortless speed. I didn't quite get that, and for me it's been a bit of a mixed bag, if I'm honest. It still feels very much like the Kinvara Pro, and there's some hits and some misses with that. As with that shoe, there are some bits that I like, some bits that don't quite land. On the plus side, I find them super comfortable. I love Saucony's uppers and the fit and the way they tend to feel instantly like they belong on your foot the moment you put them on and lace them up. I think Saucony does step in comfort, one of the best out of all the brands, and the Endorphin Trainer stays true to that kind of heritage. There's a good balance of padding and plushness in the heel collars and the tongues. The uppers fit really nicely. It's a really easy, unfussy shoe to put on and head out in. There's real promise as well when you first lace them up and sort of start walking around. But then when I got moving, things went a little bit wayward for me. For me, the dual foam 3/4 length kind of plate combo just doesn't quite deliver. It's all a bit blocky, it's a bit slushy, it's a bit sluggish and a bit slappy, and finally a bit laboured. If this was aiming for super shoe, I can't quite feel that punch and liveliness that you'll get from other shoes in the Endorphin lineup or beyond. For me, it's sort of more Asics Nimbus than it is sort of Hoka Mach X2. I found the soft, high cushion feel a little bit draining at times. even when you're doing your slowest, heaviest recovery miles, I really found I wanted a bit more tempo, less trudge from the midsole return. And certainly when I pushed the pace, I didn't find I got back what I needed. To me, it seems to prioritise a kind of cradling softness over any kind of energy or bounce. Now, I think some may well love the way that the IncrediRun, that new IncrediRun foam, sort of holds and cocoons the foot and really does dampen the road. It did a good job of making 99% of that road impact disappear. It's undeniably cushioned and comfortable, but I think we've got shoes that can do that now. They do all of that stuff that I've just described, but they also add a bit of energy to boot. The Brooks Glycerin Max might be one. The New Balance SC Trainer V3 is one that I find does that. The On Cloud Monster Hyper 2, I put in that territory. I also find the New Balance Rebel V4 a bit more direct, but a better balance of cushioning and oomph. Now, I used the Kinvara Pro for 30 odd miles of a 100 mile ultra a couple of years back, and it did a solid job as an easy, slow plodder. And I feel like this trainer sort of offers the same. But even when I was moving slow on some more uneven ground, I got some wobble in that softness, so it wasn't the most stable for me either. Certainly not the most stable big stack shoe that I've run in.
So this shoe is a bit of an interesting one because the Kinvara Pro that came out last year, I did not get on with that shoe. It just felt like I was running in clogs. I don't know if it was because I'm relatively light, but I just didn't get anything out of the midsole. It just felt like I was running with very heavy, chunky shoes on. Wasn't getting any bounce back, wasn't getting any softness, wasn't getting any comfort. It was a really weird shoe. I actually raced in that shoe, did Brighton 10k in it, and I wish I hadn't because it just didn't work for me. There was nothing about that shoe which I really enjoyed. So when the Saucony Endorphin Trainer came along, which is essentially an evolution of that design concept, I was expecting it to be pretty much the same as the Kinvara Pro, but I've pretty much had a really good series of runs in this. I've done about 70k in this shoe so far. I've used it quite a lot, and that's not just because I was testing it. I was actually picking it up because I was quite enjoying running in it. Now it's an interesting shoe because the Kinvara Pro didn't really have any plus points for me. I think the only plus point I could think of is that maybe if you were a heavier runner, that really denser midsole foam you might get a bit more out of it. It might give you a bit more stability. Whereas for me, it didn't do anything. It just felt like it was a big hard chunk of like plastic and rubber on my feet. The Saucony Endorphin Trainer, so it has this midsole in it, this IncrediRun midsole foam, which sits in the middle above the outsole, which is PWRRRUN Plus. PWRRRUN Plus is a very sturdy, firm, stable foam, which is essentially what the Kinvara Pro completely had. The IncrediRun is a very soft foam, really squishy. So it's a weird experience because you get that really soft foam and then you get this harder outsole as well. But it's quite a big difference. Like some foams, if you look at some of the Hoka shoes, like the Max series, the dual density midsole foam that they have in those shoes, or the earlier ones of those shoes, is not too far apart. It's not as noticeable as this. The two different foams are so different, and it doesn't have a dramatic impact on the way that the shoe rides. So it's a very different ride than the Kinvara Pro, and it's a very comfortable ride. So I've actually very much enjoyed using this shoe for easy-ish runs. I wouldn't say it's the best easy run shoe in the world. I'd definitely pick a midsole that was a little bit more balanced. I don't think the dual density midsole really has a big benefit to this. I think it'd be better to have one midsole for this type of shoe that was just the right type of midsole. So you're getting sort of bits of both of these midsoles. I don't think it particularly excels in either area. I don't think it's a very good easy day shoe, and I don't think it's a very good performance shoe, which makes it a confusing shoe to have. But what I have found with this shoe is that it works for me on those runs where I'm going out and I'm probably going at a consistent pace above my easy run pace, but below training hard. It's relatively easy to maintain a nice consistent pace with this. As soon as you start trying to go much faster, it sort of doesn't work because that softer midsole doesn't really benefit you, and that harder midsole doesn't really benefit you either. But it just sort of sits in the middle as this sort of consistent midsole foam, which actually does work for me, oddly, on those specific types of runs, and I do enjoy it for those types of runs. Go for an easy run, I don't enjoy it, and I would never. I'd use this for a fartlek session as well, and I didn't enjoy it for that. It just felt a bit too chunky, a bit too much on the feet, and didn't feel like it it could accelerate very quickly. It's a bit of a cumbersome shoe. So it only really worked for me on those type of runs, but I did like it for those type of runs. It did work quite comfortably for me, and I did enjoy it on my feet and didn't have any issues with it. So it's a tricky shoe to really work out why it exists, especially for the price. I mean, if you put this in the same bracket as performance level shoes like the Super Blast 2 and things like that, where that shoe is very much geared towards the faster training sessions and the longer training sessions, it's nowhere near as good. And if you put it in the brackets of easy day shoes, things like the Brooks Glycerin Max, it's not as good. It just doesn't really excel in either of those areas. It's sort of got this sweet spot for me, which sits in the middle of those, which I do quite like it for. But as I say, that's a difficult position to put a shoe in, because not many people want that from one shoe. You're not going to buy a shoe just to do that. So that's where I'm sitting with at the moment. I have enjoyed it, but only for those specific runs. The outsole on it is a funny one. This PWRRUN Plus is pretty sturdy. It's basically got these tiny bits of rubber on the front and back, which aren't really for durability, because they're not going to do a lot when you've got the whole rest of the shoe exposed. Presuming they're more for a bit of grip on the front and back. But this midsole is very, very sturdy. I've no signs of wear or tear on it at the moment. Absolutely fine. So I expect it to be a pretty durable shoe.
So I've run about 50k in the Saucony Endorphin Trainer, using it for a mix of daily training runs, mostly at a pretty easy pace, a little bit of speed here and there, but mostly just, cranking out miles. Now, I think this is what the shoe is really designed for, to be a shoe that you can use for a lot of miles and be fairly versatile. I wasn't really a big fan of the Kinvara Pro. I found it just quite a heavy shoe, quite a clunky shoe, and just didn't really work for me. Like, I much prefer something like the Endorphin Speed 4, and that's very much the case when I'm looking at the Speed 4 versus the Endorphin Trainer as well. I think the shoe does fit into the Endorphin range fairly well, but it still doesn't really have much of a role for me as a runner. So I wouldn't be using this as my easy day shoe as a companion to the Endorphin Speed 4. I wouldn't want to plate in my easy shoe. I'd prefer just a pretty standard cushion shoe for that role. And then it doesn't have the life to replace the Endorphin Speed 4. Like, it's not a speedy shoe for me. Maybe it's a shoe that could work as an Endorphin Speed 4 alternative for people who find that too unstable or something. But in general, I just find the ride of the shoe pretty uninspiring. Like, there is a nice layer of this IncrediRun foam, which is a good foam, but it's very much dwarfed by the amount of PWRRRUN you have on this shoe, which is the bottom layer of foam here. And that's just not a very lively foam or anything like that, and that's the dominant feeling you get on the run, is that kind of pretty thudding, dense feeling from the PWRRRUN foam, exactly the same as it was with the Kinvara Pro with its PWRRRUN PB top layer. I think you got a bit of an improvement with the Endorphin Trainer compared to the Kinvara Pro. I think I like the setup a little bit more on this shoe, and it feels a little bit better, but it's still a shoe that doesn't really have the most natural ride, even at easy paces, and then just doesn't give a lot back if you are going to try and push the pace. It just doesn't really feel like it's doing enough for me to justify the amount of stuff that's going on the midsole and its high price. Can tick along in it. I'm pretty sure it's a shoe that's going to last a very long time and be a daily trainer you can use for lots of mileage. Maybe, like I say, it might be an alternative, the Endorphin Speed 4, if you are a heavier runner, or maybe don't find the Endorphin Speed 4 stable enough for you. But we'll talk more about some better alternatives, I think, in the verdict. So yeah, it's just the actual run test of it just hasn't been that fun. Like, plays a role that I think is played better by very standard basic cushion daily trainers that are a little bit lighter and actually maybe have a slightly more lively foam setup. It's also quite a loud shoe, which is never great if you're stomping around in a shoe. So while I didn't dislike the ride that much, it's just there's so many just things that just don't really hit the mark for me with this shoe that it all adds up to something that I wouldn't really consider for my own rotation. I don't really see how easily it fits into other people's rotations either, because it's pricey and just doesn't really deliver a lot on any particular front.
So my verdict on this shoe, you probably got it from the run test there. I like it for a very specific type of run, but you can't market a shoe for that sort of run. If you're just buying a shoe for those sort of consistent over easy pace runs where you're going a bit harder, you want to maintain it for longer. It feels good, but it doesn't really work very well for the easy runs or the faster sessions. It sort of sits in this realm in the middle. The Super Blast sort of does that, where it's designed for it's best used for longer sessions. But if you're doing marathon training and you're going out and you're going 25k, 30k, and you're running at a nice consistent pace that's a little bit maybe below your marathon pace, but you're going hard at it, you're going at a tempo pace. That Super Blast 2 is really good at that. This is almost like that, but just not as high level as that. It's just sort of overly competent runs where you maybe want to run a bit harder, but you're not really training hard enough. I definitely wouldn't use this shoe as a marathon training shoe. It just doesn't have as much benefit as I want from that. But yeah, as I say, for those ones that sit in the middle, fantastic. Really enjoyed it for those. And I do think that combination of the IncrediRun and the PWRRRUN Plus does work in that scenario. But it's a very niche purpose for a shoe, and I think I could probably pick 10 other shoes that would work better either side of what this shoe is doing. So so a tricky one to suggest, especially considering the price. I think Superblast 2 is obviously an alternative to this. I'm not entirely sure how this shoe is being marketed. If it is, they're trying to make it a performance shoe, if they're trying to make it a daily shoe that's comfortable, because I don't think it fits into either of those. Superblast 2, that's a much better versatile shoe that you can use to an extent for easy runs, probably as well as this for easy runs. But it just surpasses it a long way when you get to those faster, longer sessions. I know you can't find that shoe very easily, so that's probably going to have an impact on if you're going to get that. But other shoes that you might want to look at instead of this, there's loads of daily shoes that you could look at that probably do a better job than this, that are considerably cheaper. So things like the Mizuno Neo Vista, shoes like the Brooks Glycerin Max, even I would say is probably has a similar level of versatility to this shoe, apart from maybe that one specific type of run that I think this does better at. So yeah, tricky one to really pin down this shoe. I have enjoyed it, but only for a specific purpose, so it's a difficult one to suggest buying. And I think the only thing that the Kinvara Pro had that was sort of a selling point was that it was really stable and sturdy and maybe would work for heavier people. I don't think this will now, because this IncrediRun is really, really soft, so you sort of lost that benefit as well. It's a tricky shoe to talk about, and not one that I would suggest people get, but it's a fun one to try. I have enjoyed testing it out in some instances.
Verdict then, and there are things that I like about this shoe. I like the comfort on the foot, I like the way it disappears, I think there's a nice plushness and balance to the uppers, but I'm a little bit confused by the ride. For me, it's got perfectly good, soft, cushioned ride, but it falls a bit flat, and if it's supposed to offer speed, I'm not quite feeling it. It's lacking the energy I was really hoping for when I first started moving around in it, and for me, I found it has limited gears. That's kind of fine if that's all you want. It does slow and cushion quite well, but there are lots of shoes that use, I think, a dual foam setup to offer more versatility. I might lace this up for the middle 40 miles of a 100-mile ultra where I want cocooned comfort, but it's a bit big and stodgy for me for faster runs, and even on the slower efforts I sometimes found it a bit harder work than I really wanted. Now I sound like I really didn't like this shoe, and that's not quite true. It's kind of okay, but when there's so many excellent versatile daily trainers out there, I think we have to get picky. So while I can happily run in this, I wouldn't be picking it ahead of many other shoes. Like for $20 more, you can get the Asics Superblast 2 for the same price in the US. You can get the New Balance SC Trainer V3, and I think it offers more. And I'd probably choose the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 for me in the way I run over this. It's a slightly different beats, a bit more direct, but I tend to use that for the same kinds of runs.
So my verdict on the Saucony Endorphin Trainer, it's a pretty solid cushion shoe. You can go out there and do miles in the shoe. It's not going to hold you back or anything like that, but it will hold you back, I think, at faster paces. And I don't really think it's got the most enjoyable ride for easy paces either. It just feels like quite a dense shoe underfoot. Sure, it's going to last a long time, do a solid job, but compared to the other really exciting shoes with the Endorphin name, or indeed just general super trainers or cushion shoes from other brands, it's just not one that I'd really go for, especially given it's got quite a high price. It's like there's lots of just easy day cruisers with more fun rides at lower prices, like looking at just that band of really solid daily trainers you get around the kind of £140 price mark. Things like the Asics Nova Blast 5, the New Balance Rebel V4, so these are a much lighter shoe, slightly different shoe, but pretty comfortable as well. Hoka Clifton 10, these are all really solid shoes that I enjoy running in. I think I do the exact same runs in them that I do with the Endorphin Trainer, and I probably enjoy the ride a little bit more. And you're not getting a lot more here from the nice foam they have on the top and the half plate in there. It just doesn't really bring a lot of life to faster runs that you don't get from pretty standard shoes, I think. So that's what I would look at instead if you're looking at kind of a general daily trainer. If you want that super trainer feel, then I just don't think you get it here. Even if you're someone who wants a more stable and protective daily trainery super trainer. So if you're rolling out stuff like the Hoka Mach X2 or the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 as two lightweight speed focused shoes, then there are still loads of really great super trainers that have big stacks of foam, quite stable designs, cushioned and fun and enjoyable to run in. One that really stands out compared to this shoe for me is the Brooks Hyperion Max 2, which is not my favorite super trainer, but that's because it is more of a daily trainer for me. But it's a livelier shoe than the Endorphin Trainer. It's a lighter shoe, get more back from the setup of plate and foam in the midsoles, and it's still really stable and great for grinding out lots of miles. And I think if you're looking at something like this, I would always veer towards the Brooks instead, or the Nike Zoomfly 6, which maybe isn't quite as stable, but a lot more fun and lively underfoot, still really comfortable. The Mizuno Neo Vista, soft, bouncy, really fun, again with the plate in there, cheaper than this shoe, lighter than this shoe. Even the New Balance SC Trainer V3, which is a very expensive shoe, but a fantastic shoe that I do think is more versatile and fun to run in. So that's the thing with the Endorphin Trainer. Like, it's okay to run in this shoe, but I just can't see why I'd buy it over other shoes, or the kind of runner I suggest it to over other shoes. So you can pick it up, it'll do a lot of miles, it'll do them fine. I just think for the price and the ride you get here, there are better alternatives really on all fronts.
That's it from us on this review of the Saucony Endorphin Trainer. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and click that little bell. And if you go into the caption below, you can find a link to our podcast, which comes out a couple of times each month. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you next time.